So you got a no limit hand for us?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I went to Borgata, like the previous caller, for the first time this past week because they reopened last week for the first time since March. So I'm at a 2-5 no limit game, $300 to $1,000 buy-in. I bought into the cap, and I start this hand with about $800.
Okay.
And I'm in mid position 1, and there are 2 other villains in this hand. Villain 1 has about $540, and he is under the gun.
Mm-hmm.
And villain 2 has about $500, and he is in MP2 on my left.
Okay.
Okay, so we pick up King of Hearts, King of Diamonds, pre-flop.
Okay.
Under the gun, villain 1 raises to standard $20, and he's an unknown to me. I haven't seen him play too many hands, and I've only been on the table with him about a half an hour.
Okay.
So with a premium high pair, I re-raised to $65, so to keep my range a little bit wide rather than raising. I thought raising 65 was a good number since I thought he was a fairly tight player. I didn't want to have him fold immediately. And the player on my left, who I know very well from years of playing with him in New York City, he's a very loose, aggressive player. He flat calls to 65, which is actually not that surprising to me because he's such a loose player.
And how deep did you say he was again? I know you did before.
500. The villain 2 on my left. Yeah.
So under the gun to 20, hero and MP1, 3 bets to 65 with King, Queen of Hearts, cold call.
King. Oh,
King of Hearts, King of Diamonds?
King of Hearts, King of Diamonds. Yeah.
Okay. King, MP2 calls. Okay.
Right. And then MP1 flat calls.
You mean the under the gun flat calls? Under the gun, excuse me. Yeah, I'm reading my notes poorly. Yeah, the initial raiser just flats. Okay.
The re-raise.
So 3 ways.
We see the flop 3 ways. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So flop is Queen of Diamonds, 8 of Diamonds, 8 of Hearts.
Queen of Diamonds, 8 of Diamonds, 8 of Hearts, and you've got King, King with the King of Diamonds.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I have the King of Hearts, too. So I guess I have a front door heart draw, potentially, runner. Villain 1 checks. Because of the player on my left who's so bluffy and so crazy, I decided to check because I also didn't see a whole lot of value in betting that flop other than maybe getting called from some sort of queen high hand, like a ace queen, which would be the best scenario, or, queen 10, jack queen, something like that. So I decided to check also just to maybe see what the turn brought and see what kind of action there was on if the villain on my left would take a stab. But he checked as well. So get check.
All right. So let me this is my fault. I just want to make sure I got the suits right and the board right. So it's Queen of Diamonds, 8 of Diamonds, 8 of Hearts.
Yes.
And you've got King of Hearts, King of Diamonds.
Correct.
Okay. And so you decide to check because you've got this sort of maniac guy to your left here.
Yeah.
And the guy from under the gun's got 540 and the MP2's got about 500. I guess you can get obviously value later on because they only have maybe 3 pot size bets left or something. But I would just, whenever I get in these spots, I just bet small, like 50 or 60 or something like that. And, it's interesting because the whole idea of betting small, maybe not necessarily multi-way, but heads up, is because people will under defend. But in live poker, people will over defend to small bets, I feel like. So it's kind of almost like a way to slow play. Kings also needs a little bit of protection. I guess it's not terrible. You say, well, you block King, Queen, and maybe you can get some value later on. But okay, so it gets checked through.
Right.
Yep.
Turn is the 6 of clubs.
Okay.
Villain 1 checks again. Now I decide to bet about 85. I want to get some value for my hands.
Uh-huh.
Villain 2 flat calls the 85, and then villain 1 also makes the call of 85. So now the pot is about 447 or 445.
So you bet 85 on a 6 of clubs turn. Queen of Diamonds, 8 of Diamonds, 8 of Hearts turns a 6 of clubs. and now it gets checked to you, you bet 85, and then you get a call and an overcall. The reason why I think that overcall is obviously pretty peculiar. Well, both calls are fairly peculiar, right? Because I think that you, just based upon what you were saying, that this seems like the guy to your left is going to bet off Queen X a fair amount on the flop, right? Now, we don't see a reflection of like, there's front door diamond, so you would think that at some point somebody's going to start to fast play trip eights if they have it. So it's just weird that you've got a call and a call, because what are they calling with? You know what I mean? Like, what's the other guy overcalling with? I mean, I guess he could have, he's the pre-flop raise. So by the way, this is a good little lesson in hand reading too, right? You know, you look at it and you're like, well, there's 5-7, 7-9. I mean, the under the gun guy though, he's the pre-flop raiser. So that's pretty far out there to defend. I mean, obviously you see it before, but if you were to have a guy, here's the thing, you can just put all these things together. If you've got a guy that's loose enough that's going to be opening, say, like 9-7 suited or 5-7 suited from up front, and then call a 3-bet after somebody else cold calls in position, pre, and then the board gets checked through, and most players aren't checking overpairs, like in your spot, and now the turn's a 6, and you're sitting there with 9-7 or 5-7, and you're that type of player, I think there's a super high chance that that type of player is going to bet the turn, now that he's picked up open-ended and no one's shown any interest in the pot post-flop. So it's peculiar. Agreed. It's peculiar to me. But you said that this guy is an unknown, but I mean, I guess somebody could be playing a queen sort of like passively, like queen jack, queen 10, you know, something like that. But it looks like, so you said the pot's 45 and you've got what, like, well, you got them covered. So what, one guy's got, you know, 400 left, and then the other guy's...
Yeah, one guy is 350 and one guy is 370 left.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, let's go to the river.
So the river is another blank. It's like like a 3 of hearts. Doesn't complete any straight and doesn't complete any flush.
Yep.
And villain 1 checks.
Okay.
And I figure the pot's 447. At this point, they both called the turn. I thought an all-in value bet of their effective stacks, which was 370 at the most from villain 1, was a good bet because maybe they put me on some form of a bluff since I checked the flop. Maybe somebody has pocket jacks and they're going to get sticky. Maybe somebody has that queen we talked about, like that queen jack, queen 10, and they decide to look me up. So I thought that I was definitely opening my range up by going all in rather than trying to extract value with a half pot size bet on the river.
Here's my thought here. Something smells a little fishy to me here. And that obviously that's not a reason for you not to value bet, but the sheer fact that the pot is when you look at this from two sides, right? Just, you know, hand reading experience and a live dynamic. The fact that it goes call on the turn, I just think that, like, from your value side, your thick value side of moving all in, I think it's going to be much harder for them to call when all of a sudden you go bet all in here into 2 people. So that's number one. So if I kind of like what I'm thinking about on the value side is that if I want one of these guys to call, I'm going to bet smaller because I don't like, unless that guy up front has a weak queen here, I don't think that these guys have anything that's strong that's going to pay you off. Now, my second part is that I might smell a rat here a certain percentage of the time. And somebody might have quad 8s or like quad 6s, and now you're just opening yourself up. Whereas you could have gone for like pretty thin value of like 150, and then if somebody jams, you're like, this guy's... Well, now I understand why the hand was played this way. He flopped 4 8s. You know what I mean? Of course. That's kind of what my feeling is here. So I don't know if I would choose an all-in sizing here.
I mean, that's definitely my reason for the call.
Yeah.
I thought my all-in was probably the wrong sizing.
It's just like, it's interesting. Like I said, when you come up with like, what hands what do these guys have? Like, it could be a thing where like the guy on the turn, like the guy in position has pocket 6s. The guy up front might have pocket queens. The guy up front might have quad 8s. Like, those are like hands that are possible here. And when you move all in, I think you're trying to target the guy from up front with a hand like queen jack or ace queen, but it doesn't make sense to me because those guys I think are going to bet that off a lot on the turn after it gets checked through on the flop. You know what I mean?
I do agree. I kind of put ace queen out of anybody's range by the time we got to the river.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you.
But so you moved all in, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Villain 2 on my left folds pretty quick.
Okay.
And then villain 1 goes into the tank. And when he went to the tank, he leaned back and he was like, wow, did you 3-bet me with an 8? And right then I was like, oh, brother.
By the way, before you reveal something, somebody in the live chat said something here, which is I just want to discuss it. This guy, Scott, says check the river. The issue here with checking the river, now, the only thing I can say about checking the river with the way that you've set up this hand is that unless somehow that seems like this wild guy to your left, like unless he's going to bluff at it, I still think that there's more value in betting the river to get called, unless we're going to go so far the other way that the overcall on the turn indicates that you're beaten. But the weird spot where you're like, I don't think I'm putting any more money in the pot here. I just want to get to the end because I don't think I've got the best hand. But the weird thing here is that if you check to the wild guy and he bets, you're probably going to call. So, which, you could induce a bluff, but it's usually in these spots, you want to err towards betting thinly for value because your opponents are going to make calling mistakes and they're not going to bet for value themselves. So that's why we usually err towards betting to get called as opposed to checking and then them checking backhands that they're supposed to value bet and not bluffing and things like that. But anyways, villain 2 fold.
And Bart, it didn't seem credible that a bluff on the river from the guy on my left would have made any sense when if he was going to bluff, he might have bluffed the flop or the turn, but not the river when it's a total brick. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. So
I think if I checked, he would have checked, and I was never going to check there ever.
So villain 2 folds, and what happens? The other guy calls?
Yeah, he called with aces, which I thought was the last hand I could put him on, given that he flatted my 3-bet pre-flop after I got an overcall from the villain on my left. It didn't make any sense to me.
What the? He has aces and he didn't 4-bet pre.
Correct.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I mean, again, I don't, it's an interesting, I think it's a little interesting hand reading exercise because of the way that it's sort of, it's a 3-bet pot and there's like weird action post flop. I assume he would have just called if you bet small.
Correct.
But yeah, that's really odd. That's really odd.
I mean, I don't write you in too many hands because I don't have too many hands where I feel like my hand reading is off by much, where this one just, I had to scratch my head. So
yeah, I mean, occasionally you're going to see stuff that's weird, right? Like, you're going to see stuff that's weird. But yeah, that's one that I would never have thought was going to be the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
What can you do?
Yeah, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call-in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.